The snow fell gently like feathers from the heavens, dusting the pavement and softening the harsh outlines of the towering city buildings. Through the massive glass windows of Whitestone Industries headquarters, the world outside looked like a holiday postcard: glowing lights, carolers on street corners, and families wrapped in scarves and love. But inside, on the very top floor of the 47-story skyscraper, there was only silence. Daniel Reeves sat behind a sleek, expensive desk made of dark oak, his posture slightly slouched, his expression blank as he stared out at the world he no longer recognized. The office was dim, lit only by the soft glow of a desk lamp and the twinkling lights on a small artificial tree someone had placed in the corner out of tradition, not cheer. The staff Christmas party had ended hours ago. Champagne had been poured, polite laughter had echoed, and meaningless toasts had been made. One by one, the employees had slipped out, heading to their homes, their families, their warmth. Daniel hadn't joined them. He couldn't remember the last time Christmas had meant anything real to him. The company had consumed his life, like a beast with an endless appetite. He had built it from the ground up, sacrificed everything for its success: sleep, friends, his marriage, even his relationship with his younger brother. And now, after years of relentless ambition, he had everything, except anyone to share it with. The irony wasn't lost on him. A man worth billions, sitting alone on Christmas Eve with a cold cup of coffee and no one to call. Unable to bear the suffocating silence of his office any longer, Daniel stood up, grabbed his coat, and made his way out of the building. He walked without direction, hands buried in his pockets, scarf tight around his neck. The city pulsed with joy all around him: families sharing meals in warmly lit restaurants, couples holding hands, children pointing at glowing window displays. Eventually, he found himself across the street from a small park where a massive public Christmas tree stood tall, decorated with colorful lights and handmade ornaments donated by local schoolchildren. Around it, people gathered, some sharing cocoa, others singing softly, a few just watching the lights flicker in the snow. Daniel sat down on a bench near the edge of the crowd. The wooden seat was cold beneath him, and he exhaled slowly, his breath fogging in the frosty air. He watched the people with a quiet ache in his chest, envious of the warmth they shared. He felt like a ghost, present but invisible. Minutes passed. Then, without warning, a small voice broke through the haze. "Do you want to have dinner with us?" Daniel blinked, startled. He turned to see a little girl, no more than 7 years old, standing beside the bench. She wore a puffy red coat, slightly too big, and a matching knit hat that flopped to one side. In her tiny hands, she held a paper plate with 2 sugar cookies, one already half nibbled. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The girl smiled up at him, bright-eyed and innocent. "You look lonely," she said. "And Mommy says no one should be alone on Christmas." Daniel glanced up and saw a woman standing a few steps behind her, bundled in a wool coat, holding 2 warm food containers. She looked a little embarrassed but didn't interrupt. Thank you," Daniel said finally, unsure of what else to say. He looked at the cookies, then back at the girl. "Are you sure?" She nodded firmly, as if she'd made an important decision. "We have soup, and rolls, and there's music." Daniel's lips curled into a soft smile, one that surprised even himself. "You're very kind." The woman approached then. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "She's very friendly. We're just heading to the shelter down the block. They've got a little Christmas dinner going. You're welcome to come." Daniel hesitated. For a moment, the old part of him, the CEO part, almost declined politely and stood to leave. But then he looked at the girl again, at her bright eyes and genuine smile. She had seen him, really seen him, not the expensive coat, not the designer watch, not the loneliness he tried to hide. Just a man sitting alone on Christmas. He stood up slowly. "I'd be honored," he said. The girl beamed and handed him the plate. "I'm Lily," she said. "Nice to meet you, Lily," Daniel replied, accepting the cookies as if they were made of gold. And just like that, he followed the girl and her mother into the night, into the warmth he didn't know he was missing. The warmth hit him the moment they stepped inside. The shelter was modest, tucked between 2 brick buildings just off the main street. A faded green sign above the door read, "Hope Haven Community Center." Inside, it smelled of cinnamon, warm bread, and something Daniel hadn't experienced in years, unfiltered kindness. The room buzzed with quiet energy. Volunteers served hot food behind long tables, families chatted softly at folding chairs, and soft instrumental Christmas music played from a corner speaker. Handmade decorations, cut-out snowflakes, paper stars, and finger-painted Christmas trees lined the walls. The entire space glowed in the cozy way that had nothing to do with fancy lights and everything to do with love. Lily led the way, holding her mother's hand in one and Daniel's sleeve in the other, as if he were a part of their family already. "We usually sit near the window," she said proudly, guiding him to a table at the back. Her mother gave him a small smile as she handed him a tray with a generous serving of soup, mashed potatoes, rolls, and even a slice of pumpkin pie. Daniel took a seat. For a moment, he just stared at the tray, steam curling up from the bowl of soup, and felt a knot in his throat. "Thank you, again," he said quietly to the woman across from him. She shook her head. "No need to thank us. I'm Emily." "Daniel," he replied. Emily offered a polite nod, the kind that left space for more if he wanted to share, but didn't press him if he didn't. That, too, was kindness. They ate quietly at first. Lily chattered between bites about her cat named Marshmallow, how she made cookies with glitter sprinkles, and how her favorite part of Christmas was the carolers, even though she didn't know all the words. Daniel listened, genuinely smiling for the first time in what felt like years. It was so strange. He'd attended $1,000 dinners with business moguls and never once felt this full. Not just his plate, his soul. "What about you?" Emily asked gently after a while. "Where's your family tonight?" The question landed like a snowflake, soft but heavy. Daniel stared into his cup of cider. "I don't really have anyone anymore. My parents passed years ago. My brother and I drifted. And I divorced a long time ago." Emily nodded slowly, as if that explained everything. Lily looked up. "Well, you can have Christmas with us," she said firmly. "Right, Mommy." Emily chuckled softly. "Yes, of course." Daniel's throat tightened again. He couldn't remember the last time someone invited him to be part of something so simple and genuine. "You know," he said after a pause, "I used to think success was everything. I worked all the time. Missed holidays, birthdays. My marriage fell apart because I was always chasing something more." He looked around the room. "But sitting here, with you two, I realize I missed what really mattered." Emily gave him a soft smile. "Sometimes, it takes a quiet night like this to remind us." They didn't ask him what he did for a living. They didn't care what kind of car he drove or how many figures were in his bank account. They cared that he was alone, and then chose to make sure he wasn't anymore. Later that evening, when the tables were cleared and the lights dimmed slightly, a few volunteers began singing carols near the tree in the corner. Lily tugged on Daniel's hand. "You know the words to Silent Night." "I think I remember a few," he said with a chuckle. "Sing with us," she said, and before he could respond, she had already dragged him forward. Standing with them, singing awkwardly at first, Daniel felt something shift inside him. It wasn't just the music or the smell of cinnamon. It was the warmth of being seen, being welcomed, not as a CEO, not as someone powerful or important, but just as Daniel. As the last note of Silent Night echoed in the room, he looked down at Lily, then at Emily, and then around at the small, imperfect, beautiful group of people sharing this moment. For the first time in decades, Daniel didn't feel empty on Christmas. He felt home.